So my childhood was pretty ideal, actually. I had both parents. They were very loving and affectionate. We had a lot of fun together. I had two older half-sisters and an older brother. We were all really close. My mom was kind of like the superintendent of the church, and she also was super involved in like PTA stuff for the school, and she was a chef, so she was always baking things. Our house always smelled like homey. We were one of those super tight-knit, like Christian families from a small town, which sounds kind of awful, but it wasn't. We all kind of just fit together, and we spent lots and lots and lots of time watching Boy Meets World and laughing until we cried, and we had good times. So when I was 9 years old, my mom was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and she was given 2 months to live, and that ended up being pretty accurate. She passed away October 9th of 2001 when I was 9. My little brother was only 6. My sisters were actually kind of taken away because they were my half-sisters, so we weren't allowed to see them for months and months and months, and then it was just kind of passing 1, maybe 2 hour stints where they'd kind of escape from their house to come and try and hang out with us for a little bit. Actually, 2 months after that, my father started dating and immediately started dating a woman named Christy, and she very rapidly moved in. They kind of just weren't adults, and because my two older sisters were no longer living with us, I became the adult, so I was the one balancing the checkbooks and making sure that everybody was tucked into bed at night and well fed and that chores were done. My father had a relapse. He had been a former drug addict, and my mom had kind of kept him sober and happy, but once she was gone, he kind of just fell off the boat, I guess. So I stayed with my stepmother. At first I kind of thought we just rubbed each other the wrong way, but she became more and more verbally and emotionally abusive towards me, calling me names, telling me that I killed my mother by being a bad child and causing stress, and stress causes cancer, so it was my fault, and calling me names, telling me I was ugly and stupid and that no one was ever going to want to be near me, that I was manipulative, that I was cruel, that I was a sociopath. I had really bad posture, kind of just curled in on myself. I didn't make eye contact easily. I had trouble being confident in any aspect of my life. Just overall, a part of me became withdrawn. I wouldn't say I became withdrawn. I was still pretty outgoing, but I learned to kind of put a part of my personality on mute. I learned to kind of muffle a part of myself until I became almost, my friends used to call me the Stepford daughter. She'd walk into the room and I'd immediately, like, my posture would change and I'd kind of just like close off, and almost like a vacant expression would come over my face because I knew I couldn't be there. I had to become kind of a robot shell of a person, because otherwise it would be her actually hurting me when she spoke to me. Just as a clarification, I don't know if at any point my stepmother ever really realized how awful she had been. She's sick herself in a certain way. I don't think of her as being an evil person. I think of her as being somebody who doesn't get it. One of the things that my stepmother would do was ground me. It was pretty extensive, and I was almost always grounded. But when that was all said and done, that actually kind of gave me an excuse to stay in my room away from her and spend the time reading or writing and escaping to these other worlds that I created, or people far more talented than I created. Being able to write letters to my mother, which I would do regularly, helped because it felt like she could still hear me, and like I still had a mom that didn't hate everything I was and everything I was going to be when I grew up and everything I had been when I was younger. So I kind of, as weird as it sounds, I kind of escaped reality into my own kind of reality where I still was happy. When I was 18, I started applying for colleges. Every single college I applied to was out of state. I didn't want to be there anymore. I knew that in order to grow and to become more like the person I had been before I'd become this kind of shell of myself, I needed to leave. And I ended up getting into Fordham University, which is in New York City. And I remember sitting in my dorm room for the first time alone and just crying tears of joy. Because I knew that what this would mean for me was relearning how to just be myself at a base level, how to grow and change and not worry about what they were going to think of me every second and not have to have my guard up anymore. And it meant that I was in New York City, surrounded by all sorts of interesting and different and exciting people who were completely open to just caring about me for who I was. And I didn't have to pretend for anyone anymore that I was this kind of mild-mannered, quiet, insecure, sad girl. I could just be me. I will say that since I came to New York, I am doing what I love. And I'm doing all sorts of things that I love, not just one thing. I'm writing, I read a book a week. I self-published a book of poetry. I've been working on a book since my sophomore year of college, a novel, which I actually just completed 2 months ago. It's been kind of a labor of love, and I'm super excited to finally have completed that. I just actually was able to travel for the first time. I went to London and Glasgow and Edinburgh and Scotland, and it was amazing. I'm very lucky that over time my two older sisters and my little brother and I became really close. Every day I kind of have to still kind of readjust my way of thinking. Every day I get a little bit further from being the robot shell of a person that I was, and I get closer to being who I want to be. I will say that life is hard, and people are going to assume that you're just a silly kid and that you don't know anything and that you don't feel anything and that nothing they say is really going to impact you or change you in any way. And they're going to say things that hurt you, and you're going to hold on to that for a long time. So I don't want to sugarcoat any of that. But all of those little broken pieces, they eventually kind of become a picture of who you're going to be as a whole. And some of that's going to come from the outside, and you can't control that. Some of it's going to be scary things that happen to you. Some of it's going to be things people say. But when it comes down to it, at the end of all that, you get to choose what parts of you are going to be added as well. You get to choose to be kind to people. You get to choose to turn your negative experiences into positive experiences for other people. It might get better, it might get worse, but it's up to you.